First off, one of the things that I love about your videos is how you always dress up, you always present
Mhm.
nicely in the videos, and you also encourage other people to do the same. Tell me why that's important for women.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that I only dress up for content and that it's just kind of to put on a display, but I genuinely get ready and dress up every single day. There is science behind that, that you are more productive and you actually have more energy when you get ready and get dressed. And as someone who stays home and my job is content creation, and outside of that, I'm a full-time wife and I help my husband outside of that, I'm just at home and everything, so I definitely could stay in my pajamas all day if I wanted to. I could wear sweatpants all day if I wanted to, but I choose not to because on the rare occasion that I do that, I find myself to be tired. I find myself to be more unproductive. It's very easy to get back into bed and to doom scroll. Whereas when I am dressed up, I want to be around the house cleaning things. I want to be creating content. I want to be out and about. So I think it's really a mental thing. And also it's a lost art in our society. I mean, you go to the grocery store and people are in pajamas in the grocery store. And this is going to be a hot take. I just don't think that's normal. I don't think it's presentable. And I think that we should bring back some class in that sense.
I completely agree with you there. What do you like to see in terms of the way that men present themselves, putting in a bit of effort there? What do you think is a good level for a single man trying to impress out there, whether he's, just going to the grocery store?
Would say dress nice, don't be in sweatpants out and about. To me, sweatpants are for the home, and maybe this could just be from my Eastern European background, but I grew up with a mother and a father who, when they went out of the house, they were in jeans, or my mom was in a sundress, or my dad was in like a dress shirt, a button-up dress shirt. You don't have to be in a full suit every day, but if you're going to church or like a nicer dinner, of course, maybe a suit. But yeah, I grew up in a home that, we wore sweatpants in the house or to go to bed. And then everywhere else, everyone was always dressed nice. My husband does the same thing. The only place that he's wearing, joggers or sweatpants is at the house. But when he's not at work, obviously, because he's blue collar, so he's got to wear like outdoorsy clothes. But when we go
Hmm.
out, he's always in a dress shirt or dress pants or like a linen outfit, kind of something more presentable than just like gym clothes.
Yeah. Was that something you encouraged in him, or is that something he was just doing anyway?
He was always doing that. He's always been someone who's been very particular about how he dresses and always gets ready in the morning when he's going somewhere. And he said the same thing to me when we first started dating. He was like, when you get ready, you are more energetic and more productive. It definitely makes a difference on how you talk to people and how you communicate with people and like your energy levels and how you go about the day.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's definitely true. It's funny that you mentioned having like an Eastern European background. I didn't know that about you, but I've noticed in other cultures outside of Western Europe and the US, like sweatpants and pajamas are things that you only wear out the house if you're ill. Like if you're going to the
Yes,
doctor because you're ill, you can wear sweatpants, but otherwise they are not for outside the home.
it's so true.
So let's talk a little bit about the whole tradwife thing and traditional family values. I think most of the guys listening to this or watching this will be familiar with, if not specifically you, then at least the whole kind of tradwife movement and
Yeah.
a return to those kind of values. They're probably wondering, what do I need to do in order to get a traditional wife? So, could we get into that a little bit, both on the qualities that they need to develop in themselves, and then also literally like places to meet them, kind of strategy for dating?
Mhm.
How do they figure out if that is somebody? So, let's start with the traits and characteristics. What would a more traditional wife be looking for in a potential husband?
Yeah, I think we kinda have to define traditional wife too in today's
Okay,
day and
sure.
age because I think it's much different, right? Like, I mean, to me, I know that trad wife is this big buzzword and it's kind of a trend, if you are different from the modern woman at all, but I don't think anyone that was born past the 1940 is necessarily a traditional woman. Like we all have washing machines, we all have kind of like modern things, but as far as having those values is kind of what I like to say. Like I have old school slash traditional values. That's kind of what I stand by. I actually texted my husband before this call to ask him some questions because I knew we would kind of be talking to a male
Okay, I
audience.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't feel super equipped to give advice to men, so I am always like I'm texting him and calling him and everything. But he one thing that I really loved about my husband and what initially attracted me to him was his stoicism, and I think that that's a very attractive quality in all men, just the ability to stay calm in any situation, to always be kind of like this pillar for the woman. And in every situation, like women, we're definitely more emotional. So when stressful things would happen in my life, or something would upset me, I would become this emotional wreck, and so I would go to him and vent to him and everything. And instead of, and even now, like as in our marriage, if something is stressful is happening in our marriage, I'm typically the one to have an emotional reaction, and I'll come to him, and he's like, "You're fine. Everything is fine. I've got it taken care of." He's just always very steady and very calm. And so
Mhm.
that allows a woman to really be able to trust a man, which I think is very important if you're gonna, attract a woman with traditional values. Typically, we want someone that it's very easy for us to submit to. It's very easy for us to trust him because he's a very good leader. So stoicism would be number one. Number two, just the outside of characteristics. He said to stop playing video games. Video
Mhm.
games are a big no for him.
I agree.
Um, yeah, whenever I first met Noah, my husband, he didn't have like an Xbox or a PS5. He had no video games. It wasn't even something I had to tell him. So I was very blessed in that department that he was never even interested in them, but he thinks it's complete degeneracy, so he doesn't play them. Also, just taking care of yourself physically is very important, both men and women. But I think women who want that provider, leader, defender, they kind of look for a man who is physically strong and he's physically capable of taking care of things if something bad were to happen. So just doing physically hard things every day as well.
hmm I think the video games things, it's not even just so much about the actual getting the ick of seeing the video game, the Xbox.
Yeah.
It's more about like you're investing all of your time and your energy into something that isn't real. Whereas you could be leveling up your own character in real life. You could actually be gaining rewards and prizes in the real world, and instead you're putting all of that
Yeah.
time into something that doesn't even go anywhere.
Yeah, and men will say, I mean, even there's, big CEOs that still play video games and they'll say that they use it to unwind, but I'm like, why don't you read a book? Because you're feeding your mind and you're also doing something to unwind. I think it's a complete waste of time. My husband agrees, so I had to add that one in there.
I'm glad that might inspire some people listening to throw
Yeah.
away the Xbox finally. So, in terms of, dating strategies or places to find more traditional women, what are your thoughts on that? And maybe you could kind of imagine, let's say you never got married yet. Let's say you were still single and kind of on the dating market. What do you think you would be doing? What would your strategy be?
Oh, wow, that's really hard because I feel like with my situation, my husband came when I was least expecting it. I wasn't even, both of us weren't going out well, I guess he was going out looking. I wasn't. So, maybe it's different for men and women, but I do know some women who are, they're of the age where they're like, I'm ready to settle down and get married and I'm looking for a man. I mean, I would say number one, church is the best way to meet like really good quality men and women for the most part. You get, especially the size, if there's a bigger church, you've got more options, but typically those women are going to be more traditional. They're going to be more conservative. They're going to have biblical values, traditional values. So that would be a big one for me. My husband and I actually met on social media, so I can't, that's a
Become an
very
influencer.
new, yeah, yeah, it's a very new, modern way to meet people. But actually, I just had a really good friend. He met his wife in a comment section on like an Instagram reel. It was an Instagram reel that was like, if you're a Christian conservative, traditional values, comment on this reel. And they got married 3 months after meeting, which was incredible. So I think I get that question all the time where it's like, where do I go to meet a traditional man slash woman? I don't think that there's necessarily a place to go. I think it's just looking for the right people. Obviously, you're not going to meet you're probably not going to meet a traditional woman in a club. I would say go to,
Hmm.
look at church before you go to a club. But just I mean coffee shops, gyms, churches, those are probably the places that I would say that would be your best bet.
Yeah. I mean, if it was a simple answer, then people wouldn't be single. I wouldn't be single, you know? Maybe I need to just make a post on Instagram, Savannah.
I know, exactly. You could
Shopping.
be a matchmaker. You could be a
Wife
matchmaker.
shopping. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, were you making content at that time? Were you like, or were you just, a regular person on social media?
No, I was just a normal person. I was actually competing in, Miss Florida USA, and one of the other girls happened to be a mutual friend of my husband's, and she tagged me on her story, and then he started following me from there. And
Nice.
that's how we got connected. Yeah.
One thing that I do like about social media, and I don't generally encourage people to do it or to get on it unless you want to make a career out of it.
Mhm.
It's nice that you get to pitch this tent really of who you are and what your values are, and then the right people just come around you. Like obviously you get those haters, but generally it's like you become a beacon for like-minded people,
Yeah.
whether that's just friends or yeah, maybe romantic partners as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just in the past few months that I've built my platform, I've met so many amazing women, and I didn't really have that community around me at first. But once I kind of like I was like, here's my values, I'm very unfiltered on social media. Everyone knows everything I stand for. And those people kind of flock to you. So, I mean, if you're a man, single man, you could go in my comment sections and you could probably meet a single
There you
woman
go.
that's
How much
traditional
of your audience is women versus men?
it's about 70-30, so 70% women, 30% men.
That's like the exact opposite of mine. Mine is on
Yeah,
Instagram at least. Yeah, I YouTube is way more men heavy. I think YouTube is just generally watched more by men as well. But
right.
yeah, on Instagram it's about the same.
That's so cool.
One of my most controversial videos recently was me saying how you can still support, your wife, your girlfriend, a family on a single income in 2025. Even if you don't make six figures, you don't make a lot of money because I think people romanticize how easy things were back in the day. But then you look at the way that people lived and they sacrificed so much and they didn't have so many things that we just take for granted, just like, well, I should be able to go to Europe once a year. I should
Yeah.
have two cars, which are $800 each a year. So, in terms of sacrifice and priorities, what do you encourage, couples or women to maybe reconsider about their consumerist attitude or just things that they're kind of taking for granted right now?
Mhm. It's funny because 'cause I've gotten in trouble for saying that before too. I had a
Hmm.
video that was just titled, "You spend too much money, and that's why you have to have 2 incomes." I mean, in certain the exception doesn't disprove the rule. Of course, there's people who actually need 2 incomes because maybe they have a really, really low paying job or they got married at 18, and they're just starting out in life and in their careers. But for the most part, I think we as a society in America specifically are very, very materialistic. Specifically women, I'm gonna call out women because we are targeted more, by consumerism and by marketing. We're a very easy target. We're very easily influenced by social media and by propaganda. I mean, you go on Instagram, you go on TikTok, every other video that you click on is an ad. You can live, without that pair of $100 jeans, or like you said, like, my husband and I personally, even though we both make an income now, we have 1 vehicle. I think that we will
Hmm.
probably always have 1 vehicle unless there just comes a point where, probably when we have kids, right, we'll probably need 2. But for now, yes, we sacrifice. Yes, sometimes we can't both go somewhere that we need to go at one time, but the sacrifice is worth it because 'cause we're able to stack that money away for the future. Also, just the traveling. The traveling is so out of hand. I think everyone, like you said, they think they need to go to Europe every year and spend thousands of dollars because social media is in our faces and influencers are traveling to Europe and Mexico every year. So why shouldn't I do that? Why shouldn't I drop, a few $1,000s on that trip? But it's on purpose. Consumerism and materialism is just pushed in our faces so that we're always going to be slaves to debt because if you're not if you're not in debt, you're not really benefiting the government, you're not benefiting these credit card companies. So of course it's gonna be that way, but it is your job to sit down and create a budget and figure out how to get out of that and be very strict with your finances. I think discipline is a great trait to have, even if you're making a lot of money, still being able
Mhm.
to sacrifice and delay some gratification, so that later on, if your future wife wants to stay home and have a bunch of kids, she can do that fully because you made those sacrifices early on.
Yeah, I think you have to build that discipline and that habit early as well. Like right now I'm single and like I make a good living on social media, but I decided that I would be more intentional with how I spend my money and I wouldn't use any credit cards, no debt at all. And I actually found myself being way happier. Like everything
Yeah.
just became more simple, you know, when you're not trying to like it's almost like you always find ways to spend the money that you have, right? Or the money that you don't have. And it becomes stressful. Like maybe for a couple, it would be nice to just go and make a picnic and be in a park and play cards
Yeah.
or something rather than, oh, we have to go to this concert and we have to go to this restaurant and we have to do this because other people are doing it. It's nice to just slow down, actually. And sometimes the sacrifices give you this unexpected reward.
It's true, and you're not putting your identity in materialistic things anymore, which I think, yeah, a lot of us, especially as women, do. Who can have the most expensive bag and then the cutest outfit and, the hair extensions and the nails and the lash extensions. Like, it's just so much. But it's putting you into debt, which is making you a slave.
Yeah, I feel like we've traded family and we've traded love for consumerism. And
Uh-huh.
like the main reason people feel like they need two incomes or they need, I don't know, $300,000 a year to live off is because we've just accepted like this narrative that our lives are incomplete unless we're
Yeah.
taking part in this game. If you look back through the decades as well, you can see how just from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s, it was just going up layer by layer of what people felt like they now needed to feel like a complete
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Exactly, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, hustling and wanting to make a lot of money and do very well financially, but the problem is when you're doing it for consumerism and to have more stuff and more materialistic things rather than to build a legacy or, have a bunch of kids or, provide for your grandchildren and for the next generations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you get offers all the time to promote stuff that you just feel like wouldn't really help
Yeah,
people, right? Or it's like,
yeah,
well, I'm sure people will buy this. And I think, yeah, obviously women get that a lot, probably more than men with clothes and makeup and all of that. But I see it happening with men more and
yeah,
more too. Like, I used to do sponsorships with a skincare company. And I was just like, at that time, I didn't really think about it. I'm like, sure, skincare for men, like, have nice skin. And then I stopped using it because I just ran out one day and I was like, wait a minute, this is just not necessary. Like
mhm,
we're just playing on people's insecurities here, really.
yeah. Exactly. I totally agree. I mean, I've said no to so many brands. I'll say
Yeah.
yes to brands that I genuinely believe in and that I will use and that I think can make a difference. But I mean, just like the ridiculous amounts of skincare brands that reach out and makeup brands and hair tools and just honestly useless stuff. I won't accept the money for it because then I'm lying to my audience and I'm asking them to spend their hard-earned money on something that, I wouldn't even spend my money on. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
gone
that's
there.
my simple rule. If I would buy it myself, I will do it. If I wouldn't, I won't do it. And I've probably turned down like so much money over the last few months and years. I'm sure you have too. But I also think that that money is coming back to us as creators because we're keeping our audience's trust. And
I
that whenever
agree.
we do our own thing, like I know you have the submissive society, and I want to get a bit
Mhm.
more into that, that's when all of that trust kind of we get to reap what we've sown there.
I agree, and I'm able to sleep at night knowing that I didn't just sell out for money. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Let let's talk a little bit about having more, open and honest conversations within your relationship. Um, what are some routines that you do with your husband that find really work for you to keep the communication healthy and your marriage strong?
Mhm. Well, one thing that we've started implementing that has helped a lot is every single Sunday we block off that day. So, no work, absolutely no work, which is very easy for both of us because we're self-employed to add work onto our calendars. But that's the one day that it's just us. Obviously, we go to church, but after that, we'll usually have a 2 to 4 hour meeting with each other, depending on, the day, and we'll sit down at a coffee shop or maybe we'll go to brunch or we can even do it here at the house. But I kind of like to be out of the house to have no distractions. And we go over finances, we go over, our own personal lives and meeting about that, and then we talk about the relationship itself, and we kinda have a series of questions, so sometimes I'll go into ChatGPT and ask it to bring up a bunch of prompts, or sometimes I'll just come up with them, or, if it's something I thought about during the week, I'll bring it up to him as well. But this just allows us to check in with each other, number 1 with finances to make sure we're staying within our budget and we're hitting our savings goals and we're hitting our financial goals with each other and just going over expenses and income. And I think that's really important to do as a couple instead of just ignoring it, which honestly a lot of people do. And then in our personal lives, so let's say, he's got something going on in his business, he'll ask me about it. I kind of like talk about that with him. We discuss each other's passions and projects and all those different things. And then the relationship. So it's like and we actually ask this to each other probably 3 or 4 times a week. We've just gotten in the habit of it, but it's just asking, "How can I be a better wife to you?" And he asks, "How can I be a better husband to you?" And this
Mm.
we give each other, full authority to say whatever it is, even if it's random or even if it's like the smallest thing. It's like, "I'm not gonna judge you. You can say whatever you want." And I just think that type of honesty with each other and just that space for being 100% transparent is really helpful in a relationship, because a lot of times, couples they'll have like one little thing that annoys them about each other, but they won't bring it up because they don't want to offend the other person. But
Mhm.
what happens is that small thing starts to transpire and grow bigger and bigger. And then one day you just completely blow up because you've got all this resentment towards that person. And then it turns into a huge fight versus us sitting down weekly and me being like, or I don't know, him, for example, "I don't like that you left your shoes next to the door every single time you got home. Can you fix that?" Done. It's
Mhm.
just that's it. It's a very simple conversation. So yeah, just have a meeting with each other. Think of it as like this is I hate to use the word partnership because I feel like it's a law firm. But this is we're building this marriage. We want this marriage to continue to thrive. A lot of couples, they think once they have that wedding ceremony and sign the contract and say their vows that it's over. We did it, we're done. But it starts there. Like that's when you start getting the spiritual attacks. That's when you start getting that's when we start living with each other. So it's a whole different dynamic. That's when the finances combine. So I just think it's very important to be 100% transparent with each other and really set aside that time because life tends to get very busy.
I love how intentional you are and how good at communicating you are in your relationships, especially as you're 20, I'm 27. I
Mhm.
mean, you're making me feel immature with the way that I conduct myself. I don't know about your husband. Was this something that was kind of? I know you've probably adapted it over time, but do you feel like that honesty and that openness and that intentionality was always there, or did you have to build that and maybe learn from mistakes?
We very early on, my husband brought up the fact that when we were dating, probably the first couple weeks we were dating, he was like, "I want it to be a transparent piece of glass between us, no speck on the glass, freshly wiped with a Windex, because if there is a speck, the speck starts to grow basically, and then that's when couples there's no transparency between them anymore and things start to happen and the marriage starts to crumble. So I always kept that with me. I would say that we're more honest with each other now than before then. Like it's definitely something you grow into. I think the longer that you are with someone, because there's things, that you're not going to tell someone maybe about your childhood or things that have happened in the past, the first year of dating. Maybe it's hard to get off your chest, but then eventually the honesty and transparency, it grows, and then you start to find out more about maybe why someone does a certain thing or they have a certain characteristic and it starts to come out. So, yeah, I think it's kind of like a muscle that you have
Mhm.
to build a little bit.
I think you also reward or encourage honesty in each other by the way that you take things. Like, I'm sure you say things to each other sometimes that are a little bit, oof, that's a bit upsetting, or
Right.
I didn't really want to hear that. But if you lash out and then you don't talk to them for a week, it's like, well, I better not tell my wife the truth anymore
Yeah.
because look what happens. Yeah, it's a maturity thing on both parties.
I think that's why both men and women, they sometimes get scared to tell their spouse something because of the way the spouse will react. Specifically, I believe that this happens with women. I think women tend to react really emotionally when their husband is like, "Hey, I you're not letting me lead, like quit nagging me." And they'll kind of lash out and then the husband's like, "Well, whatever. I'm not going to bring it up anymore." And so then it becomes this dynamic where the wife is always nagging and the husband
Yeah.
doesn't say anything. So yeah, it's really important to just have that space for one another to just I like to think of it sometimes because we've had very, very hard conversations where I almost have to remove myself as his wife out of it and just be a friend that listens to him.
Mm.
Like, if he's, like, going through something and maybe it hurts me as the wife to hear that, like, I need to take my emotions and myself out of it and listen to him as his friend and respond in that way, because then I know I'm building trust with him so that he can continue to tell me things, versus if I take my own emotions into account first, then I'm gonna react emotionally and he's gonna be discouraged from ever telling me something like that again.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a really good balance, or he has a really good balance of that stoicism with also being able to share with you and be emotional. What do you think it is about the way that he communicates that you're able to like simultaneously respect him and still see him as a leader, but also understanding on that deeper level? Because when I back at some of the more literally traditional marriages in the 50s, it's like those guys had just come back from the war and they were a brick wall. Like they never opened up. And I don't think that's a good way to be. So, yeah, what
Yeah.
is it about his communication style that you like?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a balance. He's not an emotional person. He's not going to sit there and cry and fall all over the place. But he's able to open himself up. If he's had a hard day at work, a lot of times it's not happening. It's just like I want to sit in quiet and not talk. But I think as you spend time with each other, and again, that's why we have that intentional time when there's no distractions around us, it's much easier to open up and talk to each other. And so I think that because we've made that pact with each other about open and honest communication, that he's able to do that and he's able to talk about things and to get things off his chest because he knows that that's only going to make the marriage better. I will say, for me responding, it's taken some practice. Like, when we first started dating, I definitely did not respond as calmly as I do now. That was something I had to work on because I would notice that when I reacted in that way, he would shut down and then he wouldn't, continue to tell me things or he would stop being super honest with me. And I was like, well, that's my fault because I'm responding
Mm.
emotionally and not being the listener that he needs and vice versa, which he's never had a problem responding to me because again, very calm and stoic. But I kind of had to develop a little bit of that as well.
Yeah. I think that the honesty and the communication, it's also a precedent that you can set from the early dating stages. Like to give you an example, I had a date earlier this week where we met like in person literally on a bench. So I didn't know anything about her really. I hadn't seen a dating app profile. I just thought she was attractive and we had a nice conversation. Very early on in the date, it became apparent that we were just on very different ends of the spectrum, so to speak. And she was asking me questions, and I was just being very honest about, what are your values? I'm like, look, I was on Fox News the other day. Like, what do you think? Um,
Yeah.
but I definitely felt like maybe a younger version of me, or maybe somebody else would have tried to change who they are, or kind of say it in a different way so as not to offend. Or I think men make the mistake of like trying to win a woman's affection by changing who they are, or maybe just hiding parts about themselves. I had a friend as well who he might listen to this, but it's okay. He started dating a woman recently, and before we were about to meet her, we were doing like a group activity. He says, "Please don't bring up that I have a podcast." I'm like, why would you date somebody that if they don't like your podcast, they don't want to be with you anymore? Like that should be a fundamental thing. But do you think it's hard for women to if they are looking for more of like the dynamic that you have and they have those kind of values, do you think it's hard for them today to say, this is what I want and I'm not going to apologize for it?
Yeah, I think it can be hard for women, because a lot of times I think that they kind of will shut certain parts of themselves off to maybe please a man, or maybe, they won't be as bold about what they want because they don't want to lose that date, or maybe they find validation in dating men. And I mean, if for me personally, I came off very strong when I first met my husband. I was like, "This is what I want. I'm not settling. I have very high standards." I think everyone should be like that when you're first, even the first date. Ask their politics, their religion, what they think about sex, kids, and money. If you can get those 5 subjects out of the way, then you're pretty much set, and everything else is fluff, to me, in
Yeah,
my
that's
opinion,
some first date. Wow.
Yeah. Maybe first or second, like, somewhere
Yeah.
in the beginning, because then you're just wasting your time with someone that's not going to be your forever person. I mean, I think probably the first time I met Noah, we got all 5 of those topics out of the way, first or second date. And so I was like, "Okay, what else am I looking for? This is my husband. I have nowhere else to look. We agree on those things." And then everything else that came up in the relationship was just kind of fluff that we had to work on, and that's fine. But I think a lot of people will just have this sort of surface level, they'll date someone on very surface level, and then several dates will go on, and a couple months will go on, and these conversations still haven't been brought up. But they're like, "Well, I really like the person, so now I'm kind of attached," women specifically. "So now I'm kind of attached to the person, and I don't really know if I want to bring that up." And I mean, I know women who have married men that aren't of the same religion, or have the same political views. And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Why? That it's, of course you got a divorce. That's not going to work." So yeah, if you can get those 5 things out of the way, all applause to you.
Yeah, I heard Nara Smith talking about how her and Lucky just had like a 7-hour phone conversation before they even went on a date and just spoke about
Really?
everything. Yeah. And she said, well, this seems to be my guy, you know?
Yeah, I
and
that's great advice. That's perfect.
yeah, and then got married pretty quickly after. Let's talk a bit about the submissive society. So this is
Yeah.
your community. I know that you host it on School as well, which is the platform that I use for my community. So what types of women do you have in there, and what kind of things do you get up to?
I have women from all different walks of life, and I mean, I've got girls from the age of 16 to 60, which is so cool to get all different perspectives. I've got married women, single women, women who are engaged, women who have been in abusive relationships, and or maybe they're divorced and they've got kids and everything. But one thing that we all have in common is kind of like our views. So that's really great. My goal for the submissive society is just a place where modern women can escape the modern lies that they've been told, and so that they can have a community of women who kind of has the same ideologies as them, the same views as them. I found it very hard to find women around me where I live that have the same views, and that I could actually talk about the things that I talk about with them. And so I was like, I'm going to create my own community, even if it's online, even if, we're just talking on Zoom. It's still community. It's still people to talk to and connect with. So that's really why I started it, was honestly for my own personal community. But I found that, I mean, a lot of these girls, some of them I mean, I've got girls in Australia, I've got girls in Switzerland. And so they'll kind of connect if they're in the same country or if they're in the same state in the US, which is really cool because they've found friends as well, and we can all connect. But yeah, we have really just honest and open conversations with each other. We talk about very taboo topics in society. And it's a place for them to actually be able to be bold about their beliefs and views instead of being silenced. So it's been great. I've really been enjoying the community, and I have very good feedback as well.
Yeah, one thing I love about the communities is it's an online space that's away from the brain rot as well. And there's no
Yes.
need to be like deliberately provocative. Nobody's really trying to get attention. It's just honest. It's kind of at a slower pace. The connections are more real. we've got guys in mind who like are going for lunch today, in Sydney,
Mhm.
Australia. Like I have
So
nothing to
cool.
do with that except I just built the house. And I remember kind of being in a position where you're at, where even just being a guy that was interested in dressing well, being interested in philosophy, being a bit more intentional about his future, it was just really hard to meet anybody that was like that. And I've always lived in big cities even, so I can't even imagine if you live in a small town, it must be nigh on
Yeah.
impossible. So it's cool that I haven't heard too many communities for women that are doing something kind of running parallel to what we have. So that's really cool to hear about.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I've gotten really good feedback on it that there's not really another space like that for women. So,
Hmm.
and really cool. And we meet weekly on Zoom for like an hour, hour and a half and just talk. So it's nice because it's kind of one on one. Like I get to talk to them face to face as well.
Yeah, we do that too. When it comes to the single women in there or the single women that you talk to on Instagram, what kind of complaints do you hear about the men on the dating market?
Laziness for sure. The video game issue and not being able to communicate, I would say are the top three.
Hmm.
And I think communication is a really big thing for men. You know, I grew up with a dad who wasn't open either. He's very reserved. He doesn't share a lot. Even things that would bother him, like I noticed as a child, it would build and then he would explode kind of, and he'd have this
Hmm.
resentment towards my mom instead of having that conversation way beforehand as soon as that happened. So yeah, I think men have a hard time opening up. Maybe that comes from the fact that they're told that their emotions don't matter. I don't know, but the communication is definitely a complaint.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I observed in my dad as well growing up. And he is an amazing father. But you kind of learn things from your parents, right? You see
Mhm.
things that you like and you copy them, and you see things that you don't like and you go, I think I'm going to do that a little bit differently. And yeah,
Yeah.
definitely having that openness of communication. And like you said, it doesn't have to mean, being super vulnerable and breaking down in tears. And in fact, doing that is not really communicating effectively, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't actually get your point across if you're being too emotional. It's about collecting your thoughts and then just presenting them to the person that's important in the right way.
Yeah.
So, if a man wants to build a more traditional family life for the future, what are some non negotiable traits that you think he should look for in a partner, in a woman?
And a woman, definitely someone who's not a feminist. I think that's really important. It's a mindset. The very far left feminists have a mindset that's always going to want to have this kind of domineering attitude over you. They're not going to submit to a man. And so look for women who do have those traditional conservative values. I'm not even talking about politics. I'm just talking about in general, you know, they see the wife as a helpmate and the man as the head of the household and not as some sort of power struggle, but just a genuine trust in their husband. I'm not sure what religious beliefs you have, but I'm personally Christian, and I
Hmm.
think a lot of Christian women, they naturally are like that because if they're naturally following biblical principles and they're following the Bible, then they will be like that. But those are great qualities to look for just as far as their beliefs, conservative and Christian. But then also, you know, someone who's a nurturer by nature, I think that's so important. Someone who loves children, and by nature, usually, if we're nurturers, we do love children and we want children. We want to raise big families, and then someone who's feminine as well. So, again, not trying to have a domineering attitude over you and competing with you, but someone who actually wants to support you in everything that you're doing as a man, and will actually, you know, having a really good woman on your side. If you have a good woman, you'll notice that she pushes you further in your career, and it makes your life better, and it makes you more able to provide instead of, you know, the kind of dimmering you, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
or making it harder for you to achieve your goals in life. Like the right woman will make it easier for you. And so I think those are all great qualities to look for. But again, just having the Bible as a foundation, Christianity as a foundation, is great in women. And usually, if they're following the Bible, then it's much easier to go from there.
I also read the other day that, for couples that pray together, their divorce rate is almost zero. It's like the most trusting, the
Yeah,
most intimate thing that they can do together.
I think it's we actually learned that in premarital counseling. I think it's like a 98% chance of staying together, which is I mean, that's the secret to everything. It's like, there you
Yeah.
go, stay together. Yeah, we do that too. We do that every single night before we go to bed, my husband and I, because that was something that was just like drilled into us from our premarital counselors. They were like, you don't do anything, if you don't talk to each other the entire day, if you're so mad at each other, they don't talk to each other throughout the entire day, just pray together at night and like genuinely pray for each other
hmm
and pray over your marriage. And yeah, it's not gonna fail, especially if you've got Christ at the center.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about my kind of religious journey, being as we're on the topic, because maybe I could do with some guidance here. So I didn't grow up religious at all. My family's very atheist, and I grew up in the UK as well, where just Christianity in of itself isn't really a thing anymore, sadly. But I kind of began a journey maybe a few months ago, and it came out of a strange place where I just felt like the life that I was trying to build and the kind of man that I wanted to become, it felt kind of silly of me to think that I could do it by myself, right? And I felt like I was just getting these kind of signs from everywhere. And so I just decided to begin exploring the Bible, going to some different churches, seeing what felt right for me, and really not setting any expectations about it. But just trying to discover it on my own journey without feeling like, I'm winning or losing at this game. And so far so good, but it's definitely a lot to unpack, I think, especially if you didn't grow up, in any kind of religious household or any religious schooling. You get the King James Bible and you go, "Oh my goodness, this is this is tough to get through."
Yeah, I was actually reading the King James version in a video I did the other day, and so many comments were like, "Why do you read the King James? Like, that is like trying to read Greek." And I'm like, I grew up with it, so that's just what
Mm,
I'm used to. I actually went to a private Christian school. I grew up in the faith. I kind of had to find my own journey with it because unfortunately I went to a very, religious purist school where it was rules, 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 and if you wore shorts that were above your knee, that you were going to hell, and just all these different things. So I kind of had to find my own relationship with Christ. But I will say that um, being married for sure has changed my relationship with him a lot and brought me closer to Christ because marriage exemplifies him and his relationship with his church, right? Like the husband lays down his
mhm.
life for the wife, just as Christ has laid down his life for us. And then we love and submit, women love and submit to our husbands, just as the church submits to Christ. And so it's such a beautiful relationship of that. Also, my husband is very much in the faith and he knows much more and he is, witnessed much more. So it's very easy to kind of follow in his footsteps because I have such a great leader leading me to that.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to marriage or finances, even, there are so many timeless principles in there that can really help
Hmm.
you. I'm partially glad that I didn't grow up with it, though, because that way I didn't have that experience that you're talking about of, certain figures, instilling like shame about certain things that there's no need to be shameful about and all of that kind of stuff. It's glad that I can just go on that journey now and kind of find what works for me. Um,
Yeah, there's
so
definitely some downfalls to it. I mean, I know a lot of people who went to the same school I did, and they completely cast out the faith because they had such a bad example of it. So, and I know so many. If you've got like church hurt, or someone's hurt you in the church, or even parents being overly religious and overly strict, a lot of times it pushes people so far away from the faith. So,
yeah.
yeah, there's definitely downfalls to it. Overall, I'm grateful though.
Yeah, absolutely. For you, when do you think kids will come into the picture?
Um, I I can't I mean, I very soon, I'm probably never going to announce it on social media, so, like, I'm gonna keep it very down low, but, maybe I'll post, like, the baby's hand or something.
Okay, so no babies in the reels and things like that.
Uh, it's hard. Like I go back and forth between wanting to share like my pregnancy journey and then not at
Mm,
all. No kids' faces ever will be on social media. That's a very hard boundary I have. But yeah, I very soon,
yeah.
way sooner than later, for sure.
Okay, okay. What do you feel like you've been doing to kind of prepare yourself, or you and your husband have been doing to prepare for that new stage of your marriage?
Oh, that's a hard question. I don't think you can ever really prepare for it. From what I've heard from people around us who have kids, I don't think we're ever going to feel necessarily ready. There are a couple things that we wanna have in place before we have kids, and so once those things are in place, then, I'm not gonna worry about it, and it's time to have kids. Um, but no, I don't I think just making our marriage as strong as possible and having conversations about them, like, a lot of our Sunday meetings consist of just random questions about kids, like, who's gonna watch them when we wanna go to dinner? Which set
Mm,
of parents? Because those are just little things that can cause arguments, I think, between couples or, um, where are they gonna sleep? Are they going to co-sleep? Or do we want them in a bed next to the bed? Or do we want them in a nursery? Like, just little questions like that. So, I think that those questions have just been coming up a lot more in conversation, and that's the main way that we've been preparing for it.
yeah, that was making me think of on dates. I'm always like, "What do you think about dogs sleeping in the bed?" Because I do not want that in my life. But once it's
No,
started,
I can't stand that.
yeah, but once people are used to it, like if she already has a dog and it's in the bed, good luck trying to get that dog out the bed.
Oh,
That's going
yeah,
to be
I'm
an
glad
uphill
that
battle.
oh, goodness. I'm glad that we didn't have dogs before we met because that would have been that was a big no. When we were talking about getting a dog, I was like, "My one boundary is they're not gonna be in the bed." I'm so like, my parents did that. I thought it was gross. I can't do it. So, I'm glad
Yeah,
we
I'm
didn't get
totally
dogs till
with
later
you.
in life.
I'm totally with you there. Okay, well, going forward, do you feel like this movement towards more of a traditional marriage, traditional family, do you see this getting bigger over time, or do you feel like this is maybe a moment in time where it happens to be very popular just now?
I see it growing. I mean, I've only been on social media posting for 4 or 5 months,
That's
so
crazy.
I don't
I
know
feel
how
like you've been
long
around for years. Like when I see your face, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen her for a long time.
I mean, I'm having a moment, but
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, I haven't been around long. So always had a social media account, but I was never chronically online. Like I'm definitely much more online now that I do it for a job.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. I actually didn't expect my content to go viral. I didn't, I thought that I was just kind of sharing some common sense with everyone, and it just took off really quickly, maybe because I say things that most people won't say, and so it's kind of, like, refreshing to see that. But I see it I think it'll trend upward. When I'm scrolling on the Reels page, every now and then, I see so many other accounts that are posting very similar content to you and I about, masculine and feminine roles and marriage and traditional values and all those things, and I didn't see that beforehand. So I don't know if it's just my algorithm because that's not what I post or because we're trending in that way, but yeah, I think that it will become more popular, especially with how far down the wrong way we've gone, like with OnlyFans and just how crazy the other side is. I think people are coming back to traditional values because they're
Yeah.
like, this is so insane and we need to put a halt to this.
Yeah. When I started mine, I had no idea. I would have thought maybe 10K would be good, in a year. Because I was like, well,
Mhm.
who's into this stuff? I don't see other
Yeah.
people that are. One thing that kind of surprises me is I've seen you labeled as like female Andrew Tate or kind of get that comparison. I don't see that at all. To me, he's like very materialistic and
Mhm.
about having multiple wives and not necessarily being present as a father, and it's about cars and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You seem like the total opposite to me. How do you feel about it when people call you that?
I mean, I get that label thrown around. I get it thrown on me on TikTok a lot because I
Hmm.
think TikTok is very, very left wing and like very radical.
It's also full
So
of
when they
stupid people.
Yes. Well, it's 80% women, so it makes sense. But I get that female Andrew Tate comment because I think that they see, when I talk about women submitting and women not being so girl boss and so crazy, like they're like, "Oh, that's like Andrew Tate. He hates women and she hates women, so they're like on the
Mm,
same level." So I've gotten that a lot. I share a lot of political views with him. But I don't agree with polygamy, so that's where we differ in the marriage part. Yeah, yeah, he's not a present father, he's not a Christian, he's Islam, and that's completely opposite of what I believe. So it doesn't bother me that much because there's worse labels that I get thrown on me. But yeah, we definitely don't align in all of our beliefs for sure.
yeah. One thing that I thought was not a good message, but I kind of struggled with this myself. And for a while, I was asking a lot of mentors in my life what their opinion was. As somebody that I'm 27 now, so when I started this kind of roller coaster, I was 25, 26. And I had a bunch of people telling me, don't settle down. You don't want to choose your wife now. You want to make a lot more money. You want to be more successful. Then you'll have your pick of the litter, so to speak. And then other people were telling me, well, you want to find your wife now so that you can build this empire together and you'll have that love and you'll have that trust. I think I've made my decision on which one is the better path. I would love to get your opinion on that, though.
I don't think we can ever put a timeline on when we're gonna meet the person that we're gonna spend the rest of our lives with, but the message that has been, put on both men and women is to, test all the cars before you pick the right one,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
sleep around, party, experience life, make a ton of money, and then get married. But I think there's something so beautiful about getting married very, very young, if you can, and when you're kind of starting out in life and then building a life with that person, it bonds you together more than two people that maybe really lived it up in their 20s and built this crazy career, and they both have these very independent lives outside of each other, and then they're trying to conjoin it versus no, like I want to build my life with you and create something really meaningful together. I think that the latter is definitely it's more romantic. It bonds you together more, and the message specifically that has been put on women to sleep around and to date a bunch of different guys. It has them bringing a lot of trauma into marriage later on, because they've been with so many other men, and no one wants to be realistic about it, but it doesn't just all of a sudden disappear when you get married. There's a lot of trauma in that. Same thing for men. And two, I think if you find a good woman or man, that you should just stop there and not question yourself or doubt yourself and say, no, I should never settle because I'm not at the place in life that I want to be. Then you're kind of playing God and not letting God literally show you who your spouse is. Like, I was at a point, I didn't think I was gonna get married at 18 for sure,
Mm.
but the right guy came along who, checked off all my boxes, so why would I wait? It doesn't make any sense, and a lot of people asked Noah and I, because we were 21 and 18 when we got married, "Why wouldn't you move in together first? Why wouldn't you, go to college first and then get married 5 years later?" And I'm like, "Why would we do that? That doesn't Why would we live together and play house together and build careers, but not actually, create this covenant together?" Again, I just think it's a message in society that's been pushed on us, and all these timelines have been pushed on us. But really, when you find the person that checks your boxes, you shouldn't look anywhere else and just go for it.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like a paradox of choice as well of, the great relationship that you'll actually get, that comes you build that together, right? It's not always going
Yeah.
to be you have to be aligned on the most important things, but the true beauty of it comes after you've worked on it and after you've been with each other for a long time. It's not going to be like I just need to see this perfect house and the kitchen's exactly how I want it and the bathroom's how I want it and I can just move in straight away. It's like, no, well, I like it, but we're gonna have to work on it a little bit still.
Yeah. Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
there's always gonna be work to do, and the goal is that you would become a better person yourself as well in a relationship, which I feel like has happened with me. I mean, I feel like I've become more feminine. I feel like I've become wiser. I'm closer to God now because I've got a really great leader leading me that way. And I don't think I would have been able to do that on my own within 2 years. So yeah, he's worked on himself a lot. I've worked on myself, and then that has helped the marriage as well. But we wouldn't have been able to accomplish that without each other.
Yeah. What's your opinion on couples working together? Like, I know you're self employed, he's self employed. It sounds like you kind of keep things separate, but let's say the man has his own business and the wife is working 9 to 5, and he's like, well, why don't you, stay at home and maybe help me with the business? What's your opinion on that?
So I think a dynamic like that, there wouldn't be an issue because I will say, my husband is starting his own business and I'm building the website and doing the marketing and I always want to be a helpmate to him, of course. So I don't think that there's any issue with that. I run errands for him all day now and I help him. But we did have friends who literally ran a business together, husband and wife. And that caused a lot of stress on their marriage, very unnecessary stress. So I don't necessarily think that that's the best option, but I can't speak from personal experience. Also, if the wife has to work so much on the business to where she is incapable of being the nurturer and being the supporter, then I don't think that that's very healthy. Or if you get to a point where she can't even take care of the children and you've got to hire a nanny, then maybe, have someone else step in
Yeah.
into the business. You can still keep making the income, but yeah, I think if you own it, technically if you own the business, you both own it together, but maybe the wife could step out and not work so much on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, whoever is the one that is really the CEO of the business, like let's say is your husband, is his business, but you're helping. It's not like you're
Mhm.
50-50 and you're arguing about the P&L and the cash flow and getting stressed about
Yeah.
decisions. It's like this is my ship, I'm steering it, but being as we are together, like let's help each other out. Kind of like you do in your marriage already, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I think of our household like a business kind of. If you kind
Yeah.
of have like an entrepreneur mindset, which both of us do, like it's easy to think of it like that. Like, how can we make things run more efficiently? How can I help you in the morning so that you can sleep in a little bit but still get to work on time? Just things like that. I think it's cool to run your household in that way because I think of myself as I'm the helpmate and he's the CEO of that household. Um, which is a really cool way to look at it. But yeah, I think 50-50 in anything for husband and wife is just really hard to do. Like, if you wanted to be business partners and literally be 50-50 in a business, I think that's much harder than 2 people having their own thing or, the husband maybe being the business owner and then the wife just stepping in and helping when she needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we finish up, I was wondering if there's anything about you, or maybe things that people would assume you would do that you actually don't like doing. Like, is there any things around the house that you actually don't do and you leave to your husband in a maybe more non-traditional way?
No, my husband doesn't do anything around the house, but I hate doing laundry. If I could, I would totally hire someone to do the laundry. It seems I mean, it's kind of a waste of money for me to do that, but, like, that's the one thing that I would totally let someone take care of. I feel like it's never ending. I feel like I'm always washing clothes, like, I can't even imagine when I have kids. But he doesn't take care of anything around the house. I don't expect him to. I don't have we don't have kids yet, so that's one thing I can't really speak on. Like, if you have 5 kids, you might wanna yeah, I know women who have 5 plus kids, and they're like, at that point, you just hire a maid, like, you can't even do it on your own. So,
Yeah.
for me right now, it's very easy to handle all those things. I cook, I clean, I do everything. I still create my content. But he's working from like 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. some days. And so, of course, I'm not going to ask him to come home and do any chores around the house.
Yeah,
That would be so
exactly.
unfair.
I
Yeah.
think some men have this issue of like they want to be seen as the more traditional kind of masculine provider, but their partner is just like, no, you're not, Like you have
Yeah.
to kind of I think as men you have to earn that role. Like it's not just a given because you have a penis that the woman is gonna want to submit to you and be a wife and do things for you. It's like, no, there's a burden that comes with that.
Yeah. You definitely can't expect a woman to go 50-50 with you and also make an income and also take care of the kids and also take care of the home, which I think that's actually another complaint that I get from women is that they're talking to these men who want them to stay home, but also make an income, but also be college educated, but also have no debt. Just like so many different things. But yeah, you have to be a provider in order to allow the woman to completely stay home. If you want a stay-at-home wife, stay-at-home mom, obviously you can't also expect her to work and then also expect her to take care of everything around the house. So
Yeah,
yeah, both,
completely.
both men and women have to kind of realize some things on both sides.
I feel like, kind of in our niche, it's easy for people to see it as like a blame game, as like, you're blaming men or women, or I'm blaming women. But it's like, actually, I think both genders really need to step up a little bit. Like in terms of their
Yeah,
effort in their dating lives, in their relationships, in the way that they conduct themselves. Like I just see a lot of low effort behavior that I feel like when you look back to the 50s, what was the bare minimum now is like exceptional behavior.
I know. That's really what it is we become very lazy as a society. I think it's
Hmm.
one of the greatest epidemics, and people get onto me all the time because they think that I say that women shouldn't work hard, which is I don't believe that at all. I think everyone should work hard. I think that there's nothing good will come in life if you don't work hard. It's just different dynamics in that way. But yeah, I think that we've gotten so, like you said, low effort. And effort is such an attractive trait in everyone. Discipline is an attractive trait. Waking up early and, taking care of your health and having a job and if you're a man, being a provider to your household. Literally the Bible says that a man who doesn't provide is a believer. That's how low the Bible puts men who don't
Can you
provide.
just say that again? I think the mic just went in and out. I know what you
Yeah,
said, but just for the
sorry.
people listening.
I was messing with it. Yeah, the Bible says that men who don't provide are worse than an unbeliever. And so that's how low the Bible puts men who don't provide. And for women who don't want to take care of their household and are super lazy around the house, like that's going to have its consequences too. So I think all in all, we've become lazy and we've put the blame on the other genders and for women specifically, oh my gosh, we hate men for whatever reason. Women just hate men. All men suck. We I mean women just naturally will blame people for their own faults by default, but also I see it on the men's side too, blaming women for a lot of things. I think most of that has come from feminism, and I understand why men blame feminism for a lot of things because it has caused a lot of problems. But it is a blame game. It's I don't want to have accountability for any of my actions, so I'm going to blame men. And then men don't want to have any accountability for their actions, so they're going to blame women when if we actually self-reflected and all took a look within ourselves and saw where we could improve and just focused on where we could improve instead of looking at everybody else, the society would be a much different place.
I completely agree. I feel like this episode has been very actionable, actually. Like, guys can listen to
Yes.
this and go, oh, okay, I actually understand a bit more about what's required of me and like feel inspired to actually put off the video games or whatever it may be and go out and just provide. But also it's not just about like these external things. I think that's really important. It's not just about how much money you make or how
No.
good your physique is. It's actually more about the discipline that you developed in the process, your communication skills, as you said, your emotional intelligence to be able to, like, a lot of guys wouldn't want to sit down every weekend and have like a meeting with their wife. They'd be like, oh, that's stupid, I shouldn't need to do that.
Yeah.
The people that say that are always the people that need it the most, I find.
It's true, yeah, and if you can't sit down for 2 hours with your wife or with it f for women with their husbands, I mean, you've gotta take some look inward because your marriage it's the foundation of your life. I think that the 2 most important decisions in your life are who you marry and where you live, and those 2 things 'cause that's what you're surrounded in, right? Like, where in your home, you're surrounded by your spouse all the time, and then where you live, your environment, it's constantly around you. So if you are not nurturing your marriage, you're going to be miserable, and it's going to be much harder to have a productive life if you can't even communicate with your spouse and spend that time with them.
Well said, Savannah. I think we can
Yeah.
leave it on that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
It
so
was
much for
great.
joining me. It's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Really
Thank
enjoyed it.
you for
And
having me.
my pleasure. I'll leave the links to all of your, Instagram and TikTok and all of that kind of stuff. And if we have any ladies listening that want to join the Submissive Society, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, they can just go to my Instagram and it's going to be the link in my bio and they can just join from there.
Nice and simple. Thank you so much, Savannah.